So welcome to the Integrated Resources Institute Informational Interview Program, all about jobs. So today we are interviewing David Pearson, software developer in an app development team. We'd like to make this informational interview into more of a conversation. So if you have a question, you can type it into the chat. You can also speak up in the middle, in between questions and just say, "Excuse me, I have a question." The session is being recorded. So for the sake of audio quality, please mute your audio. So welcome, David. Let's start by asking you about the nature of the work that you do as a software developer. What is an app?
Okay. An app. That word has come to mean new things in the last 10, 15 years or so. When we use the word app these days, what we were talking about is generally a mobile application or cell phone application. And these are just computer programs that will run on a phone or a tablet. These apps now are going beyond phones and tablets. We see apps on televisions now. The Windows and Apple Macintosh desktops now refer to these applications as apps as well. So really what we're talking about when we use the word app, it's a computer application. A computer application itself, what that is just simply a set of instructions that tell the computer what to do.
Is this the same thing as a full application?
There's really not a whole lot of difference between a computer application or an app running on a cell phone versus an app running on a desktop computer. Really, difference comes down to the hardware, the actual physical device. If the physical device has something on it, say like a radio antenna, a cell phone radio antenna, that would allow you the ability to make a cell phone call. So then you can write a computer application that would make use of that hardware to actually place a phone call. So our software, our apps, when they run on a phone or run on a computer, they're taking advantage, they're making use of the available pieces of hardware that are part of that device.
So it sounds like it may have at one time been different and it's evolved over time to be able to
Effectively,
do more.
it has in terms of what kind of hardware we have. Computers once upon a time were these big, huge things that would be the size of a house in the basement of some great big office building somewhere.
Right.
Now that same computing ability and power is in the size of a cell phone. And so our advances have been both physical hardware advances, making the hardware smaller, making it faster. And then we also have software advances because now that the hardware is more capable, we can create more sophisticated software that runs on top of it, those more sophisticated sets of instructions.
Well, now I have a poll. Since we've been talking about different pieces of hardware, let's find out about what you have in your pocket. Which type of smartphone do you use?
So, yeah.
We've got mostly iPhones. Few people using Android.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Both systems are just as capable. You know, there's really not a difference between the capabilities of them. It really comes down to, again, that hardware. Do you have a camera that you can use to unlock the phone with your face? That requires specific hardware to be capable of. You know, iPhone has that. Some Android devices have that kind of thing.
So it sounds like an average person might be using an app in a number of different places. I mean, you and I, we were joking about the refrigerator is going to order your groceries or some other
They
things.
they have demonstrated in kind of sales type things where they're trying to get people excited about technology. Samsung refrigerators that do have the equivalent of a large tablet on it that can actually scan the barcodes off your food, read those little radio frequency ID chips, RFID chips, to do that kind of thing. That is totally, totally possible. It's just not very prevalent at this point. It's just not out there in common at this point.
Right, right. So is there any place that apps are not found?
The truth is you're not going to find an app where you don't have computer hardware. That's the truth.
Okay.
Anytime you've got anything you could hook up a wire to and control it with some kind of electronic circuit, we can hook up a computer to that. Then we can write software that set those, give the instructions to control that thing. Everything in this world is becoming computerized. And it's really, if you don't have some kind of chip in it, that's the things where you're not going to find an app.
Mhm.
Simple electronics, like your microwave, those are running a computer program when you control the cooking and the timing on that kind of thing. It's just a very small computer program in there. They're everywhere. We have computer programs. Your hearing aids these days are just little tiny computers that we put inside of our bodies now, kind of thing. On the flip side, our automobiles are full of computers now with lots of computer programs controlling the engines and those are just other computers that we put our bodies into. So it's a different way of looking at where computers are these days, and they're just everywhere.
Such a concept to think of putting our bodies into a computer.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. So now that we've talked about where we might find apps, where we might not find apps, now let's discuss creating apps from the programming and the
Hmm.
development point of view.
Right.
Is app development the same as computer programming?
App development includes computer programming. App development is a process, and it requires many skills. Some of these skills include the computer programming, but the process really starts at an idea level. Somebody has to come up with an idea for a piece of software that does something.
Mm.
Then um, that person needs to sit down and break the problem down into little pieces, and we usually refer to that as analyzing the problem, and sometimes it's referred as business analysis. But the idea is we take a big problem and we make it into a lot of little small problems that can easily be solved. And then once you solve all the little problems, your big problem then becomes solved.
Mm.
So there's a bunch of different skills, and in a small computer program, one person could do everything. They can come up with the idea, they can handle breaking things down into the little pieces, they can handle the design, they can handle what colors are going to be used to present to on screen, kind of thing. And then again, they can handle the computer programming as well. In a larger application, particularly in most business environments, that's a team of people. Each of those skills is generally handled by an individual person. So computer programming is part of it. I'm a computer programmer. I fill that skill in the team, whereas we have another person who handles coming up with the idea, another person who handles breaking those ideas down into the little pieces. We have a graphics design person who will work with what a screen will look like and choose those colors, kinds of things. And so then in our process, we've got a bunch of people working together to achieve that piece of software that we want to have do something.
Mm. Wow. All right. We have another poll about your interests. So these are kind of long answers, so I'm going to read them to you. It's really about which skill can you use in an app programming team. David was just talking about all the different facets of the members of the team and their abilities. So the first option would be explaining how things work. If you like to explain how things work, you might be a computer programmer. Seeing what someone should see on the screen, if you're so visual, you can tell what it must look like. You might be an interface designer or a graphic designer. Now, if you don't really need to focus on the details and you prefer to dream the big dream about the project, you might be a product manager. If you want to say what someone should do next to get the job done, you might be a business analyst or a project manager. And you might be a number of these things. So let's see how you might think of yourself when you think of yourself as a software developer. So David, do you see the votes as they're coming in?
No, I'm not.
Oh, rats. Okay. Because it's really interesting on this end, because we're seeing people are voting for each one of these things, which is really interesting, but I don't want too much dead space on this recording. So let's end. Oh no, we've got another vote that came in. Oh, I want to wait until you've got them all so that people can see. Okay, I'm going to end the polling and share the results. Looks like we have a tie. Most people see themselves as a product manager or a project manager. We also have computer programmers among us, and we have at least one graphic designer. So we'll get rid of that. Pretty interesting to think of yourself in a job that you might have never thought of before, because you might well have the abilities to do it. All it takes is first understanding how it happens. So David, how is an app developed?
Well, I think we started touching on that a little bit earlier when we talked
Yeah,
about the development process.
right.
Again, we start with an idea. Walking through the process means breaking things down into smaller pieces. Um, and then, we'll have a project manager person who pays attention to making sure that all the little details got taken care of. We make a list of all the things that need to get done. The project manager's job is to make sure that those things are getting done, and usually to some kind of schedule at least, making sure things happen in order if they're required to be in a specific order. Finally, after building upon what we had spoke about earlier about solving all those little problems, getting to solve the big problem, we'll finally end up having a product that is ready for customers. So whoever's going to be using it is considered the customer, and then we release it to them. With apps, the way we release it to the public, to our customers, is via the stores. On your cell phones, you're going to see either the Apple App Store, where you can download apps from, or on Android devices, you'll see the Google Play Store, where you can download the apps from. But that is how we make the apps available to the customer, is what we upload to those stores, and then the stores make it available to all the people.
Mm-hmm. Would you say there's anything unique about an app development team as compared to a programming team? We were talking about the differences before.
Really, overall, it's about the same for app development versus any other kind of computer programming. The real thing that we have to look at is the details that an app development team needs to examine and pay attention to versus somebody who is building a piece of software that runs on one of those big computers in the basement of the office building kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really knowing who your customer is, how they're going to use that app, because the way you use an app on a phone is different than the way you use an app when you're sitting at a keyboard and screen kind of thing.
Mhm.
So these are the kinds of things that we really look at, is how people are going to interact with it. And that's just going to be different because the hardware is different.
Right, right. Would you say that either one of them has a process that's more like a party, is more noisy, and the other one is more quiet and individualized?
Well, I think that's actually different activities within the development process. Often when we are talking about ideas and coming up with the ideas, those can be very team type events where people get in a room together, get on a Zoom call like this, and just throw out ideas. And just, there's a lot of people speaking all at the same time when somebody's trying to take some notes, kind of thing, and just getting ideas out there. So that would definitely look more like a party kind of thing.
Mhm.
But when you get everything broken down into those little problems to solve, that's where things become individualized. It becomes one person job kinds of things. At which point I will take my little piece of the problem and do my computer programming part of it. And that becomes a very heads down focused kind of thing. And that's where I like to have quiet for that period of time. I turn off Zoom, I turn off all the other distractions around me, and I'll just sit and focus and work through a problem. So it's at different points in the process where you have very quiet time to concentrate, and then other parts of the process where you're in a group and you are all talking, and it can get confusing at times if it's one of those situations where everybody's talking at once.
That's funny. So, what is an example of how a team works really well?
Well, when a team is working well, it is a good sign of that is how well they are communicating. And it's difficult to see communication between team members, but the results of that communication generally include people knowing what the other people on the team are doing. So if my manager were to come to me and ask what was happening, with the other people on my team, I have at least some idea what they're working on a big picture kind of thing. And my manager can tell how well my team is working together because I know what's going on, and when he goes and asks the other person, they know what's going on, kind of stuff. So communications really is the indicator as to whether or not we're working well together.
Interesting, interesting. I know you've spent years as a programmer, and now you're a software development leader. How did you go
Yes.
from programmer to leader?
Well, some of that is being in the right place at the right time. Some in my case, my job, I work at Wells Fargo. When I came in, I was a team of one. Now I have a team of 20 software developers working on the app with me for Wells Fargo. Um, so in that case, I was just the first one who got there. In other times, I have been on a team that was brought together very quickly, and one of the management people said, okay, David, and I was between you and somebody else, and you seem to be the person who was the least excitable between the choices, the person who had the most level head kind of thing. um, and so they chose that I was going to be the lead because that's who management wanted to work with, kind of thing. So getting into leadership positions, is both something that it comes from external forces like that, just being there, or that's what the management, you are fitting what the management wants, kind of thing. Other things is that, I have experience leading from my military experience. Leadership is just baked into the way the military works. Even the lowest person within the military has some leadership responsibility. And so I've had some formal training for leadership through those mechanisms. I've also gone through management training as well, as having been a manager in the past at different places. And becoming a leader can be both trained, but there's a lot of on-the-job training for leadership stuff. You have to learn and experiment. How are you going to work with team members? What motivates them? What gets them interested? What keeps them interested? Because things can get boring. And so there is a fair amount of on-the-job training for leadership as well.
Hmm. So would you say that the thinking process of being a leader is more visionary, big picture, as compared to the thinking process for being a programmer is more to solve a specific problem right in front of you?
Yes, they are very, very different skill sets. Leadership and technical programming are different kinds of things. With the technical side of things, we are really looking at thinking in terms of problem solving. Again, even if you get handed that small problem to fix, you might still need to break it down smaller, and so that requires some technical thinking. When it comes to people, that's what we refer to as sometimes the soft skills kinds of stuff. And the skill set is very different. You need compassion when you're working with other people. You need to be able to see what they're thinking, feel what they're thinking, to be able to help guide them into achieving getting to a thought process themselves where they're going to be motivated on the team as well. So they're very, very different skill sets.
Yeah. So who do you rely on when you're having a problem on the job or when you're just doing the job? Who's your
Well,
go-to?
yeah, just doing the job, I think is forget about problems. I rely on everybody because in a team environment, we each have our own jobs, and I'm relying on other people to be doing the things that I think they're working on. That communication thing with my team. I'm expecting them to get their pieces of the job done. They expect me to get my pieces of the job done. It becomes a problem when somebody's not getting something done, and then you have to start getting into problem solving on the people level of why aren't you able to get things done here. And that goes back to your leadership skills and the soft skills with people kind of thing.
Hmm. And their communication skills to
Yes.
maybe to reassure them it's okay to say if you're having a problem because we're all going to help you solve it.
Problems are expected. There is nothing that I have worked on that I didn't run into something that was at least a small problem that had to be solved kind of thing. And in a team, letting everybody else know you're having a problem and something has started to become a problem is important. And the earlier you let other folks know that there's a problem, the faster other people can pitch in and help you. You can get advice from other folks, and problems just need to be worked on as soon as they start popping up, and communicating with the rest of your team that problems are occurring.
So is there a specific process to handle a technical problem?
Technical problems generally involves research. You run into an issue, and generally a technical problem has been solved by somebody else before. In general, we find that computer programming problems, somebody else has already run into the same problem that you're running into. So research then becomes an important thing. Being able to state your problem in clear English, enter that into Google, you will almost certainly find at least one answer for your problem. Unique technical problems are rare. Okay, so generally there's always a way to find out um, a solution. You can Google it. Your teammates also become one of your places for research, asking around, letting people know you're running into that problem. The moment you say that to your team members, somebody else on that team may go, hey, I have already run into that one and here was the solution. And you've got it solved in 5 minutes just because you brought it up and talked about it early.
Nice, nice. So you've kind of touched on this, but please describe a project that is running smoothly. You had a
Well,
one
again,
sentence answer to this one. Do you remember that?
running smoothly. When things are coming in on a reasonable schedule. Schedules are something that are kind of, we want to work towards software that is done and ready and works correctly. We don't want to focus in on dates. And so when things are working and working in a reasonable amount of time, that's a good sign that things are going well.
Yeah, yeah. Has the coronavirus pandemic changed the way that you work?
It has definitely been impacting the way we work. Myself, I have been working from home for several years. My normal schedule before the pandemic was that I would go into San Francisco office 1 day a week, and the other 4 days I'd be working from home right here where you see me right now. My personal change has been that I haven't seen the office since the end of January. I had some things going on in February as the pandemic was getting going. And when everybody started working from home in March, I was already just at home. But I have hired additional computer programmers during this time. I have hired people that I just have not seen what they look like. We don't do video conferencing for hiring at Wells Fargo. And so I have people on my team that I work with daily that I have never seen yet. And that is one of the big differences about with the pandemic is that we will be working with people that we just don't actually see.
Mhm. See, that touches on one of the thoughts that we were having about working with people who are from the developmentally disabled community. When you interview somebody that you have never seen, you may not know what might be different about them. And it's really, I loved the quote, I'm going to quote you to your face now, that you just loved that they were doing the job and getting the work done.
Yep,
And so that maybe for those of us on the call to think that, if you have an aptitude or an ability to learn this kind of thing, it doesn't matter what other things you might be working with in your life, as long as you can do the job. That's
that's right.
key. So you would agree with that.
I would agree with it.
That's
And the thing with computer programming, there is piecework computer programming available kind of thing. And so if it takes me, an hour to do something, it takes somebody else 3 hours to do something, you can still, do that work and submit it and be paid for the work, not necessarily the time of the work kind of thing as well. So that is available as well.
and the more somebody does, then
The
with
faster the
repetition.
next one, the faster it goes next time. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I want to go back to half a thought ago. We didn't get to introduce where you're calling in from. Can you let us know what city you're in?
I'm in the city of Roanoke Park. That is up in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco. About an hour's drive north of San Francisco is where I live.
So that must be kind of nice to save that drive time.
The commute, yes, we're on the changes from the pandemic. Yeah, no commuting costs. I'm saving money because I'm not driving to San Francisco once a week. I'm saving money because I'm not going out to eat for lunch. That 1 day a week. I'm eating out of the refrigerator. I'm gonna have leftovers after this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Your team sounds like they operate so smoothly together. What happens when somebody suddenly goes missing? Maybe they have that baby a month early, or they have to quarantine because they were exposed to the virus and now they can't do anything. How do you handle that?
Really, that's just about being flexible. You know, there are so many things in our lives that we can't control, and just acknowledging that something like that is going to happen and just adjusting for it is one of the things we have to do. I'm because of things going on with the pandemic. Yeah, we've had some people, get sick and not be able to work for a couple of weeks. There are other things that even non-pandemic related type things. We've restricted some of the hours for our hourly employees down to 32 hours a week from 40 hours a week, which is effectively losing a day of work for each one of those employees. And that just becomes our project team has to be flexible. We have to adjust our expectations. We're not going to get things done as quickly because certain number of people have lost a 1 day a week of work kind of thing. And that's just, again, being flexible, rolling with it kind of thing, and accommodating the changes.
Yeah, well, that's nice to have an employer who is so flexible regarding your deadlines. Right. I mean, I remember you and I worked with somebody, you'll probably remember him. He said the deadline is when you start. The rest of the time, you talk about it.
Right.
That was really,
Yeah,
really funny.
it's deadlines are a difficult thing to work with. When you focus on quality and not rushing to get things done, things turn out much better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's really it. Now, do you see these changes in the work style becoming permanent after the pandemic is handled? Or do you think people will just go back into 40 hours rush, drive to the office, that sort of thing?
Well, I certainly, for one, hope that these kinds of things stay. I have been one of those people. Again, I started working from home a number of years ago. I prefer that style of working. But the truth is I don't see that being necessarily the way the entire world is going to go. And computer programmers as a rule, have the ability to work remotely more than other jobs. But what I really see is that it's going to be depending on who you're working for as to whether or not you'll continue to work from home after the pandemic, or they're going to have you come back in the office. It turns out the people that I work for, the management, the technical management that I work for, are the kind that want people in the office. I see, my technical team within Wells Fargo coming back into the office once it's safe to do so. Um, there'll probably still be people like me who are far enough away from the office that they'll let me continue to work from home on um, a couple of days a week kind of thing. But then, other companies, they've already made the statement that they're just giving up their offices and they will be completely remote from now on. They've already made these announcements. And so it's going to depend on the company you're working for.
Right, right. Yeah, that's so interesting to know, how different people. Oh, Joseph he's got his hand up. Yes, Joseph.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of us. And we as a nonprofit organization, we have seen, David, that, well, for example, we have a 3,000 square foot, very nice office here in Irvine. And I've been the only one working here in the office since mid-March. So I'm actually going to be sending out an official announcement today that we are downsizing. We are a 100% community-based program. And as a nonprofit organization, we'll probably save about $4,500 a month, which is significant.
Yeah.
But, we found that our managers are able to work remotely. I like the Jack Johnson song, "It's Better When We're Together," but, miss seeing everyone. But I think this is really impacting a lot of businesses. I've seen 3 businesses move out of here in the last 4 months. So anyway,
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what it's like. Well, actually, I do know what it's like to work from home. This summer we had 3 college students, and then I have triplet boys, and one of them has Down syndrome and autism. So my wife was working from home, and I got a taste last week of what it was like. It's challenging, but anyway, we're still very, very busy though here at IRI, so that's good.
Yeah, we're very grateful for
I
that.
just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Some of the problems working from home are the distractions. You know, it's easy to get distracted by the things that happen around when you're working from home. I mentioned earlier, I have a cat, and he'll come up and he'll jump on the desk and he'll stand right in front of me until I give him attention, and he's distracting me away from doing my job, kind of thing. You mentioned, kids. I started working from home initially 20 something years ago. My daughter was 3. And the cool thing was she was able to occupy herself and keep herself busy while I was able to concentrate and get things done. In general, my kids over the years have been very respectful of me working from home and don't interrupt very much. My wife, on the other hand, not so much. She interrupts a lot. So.
Wanted to mention something, Wendy.
Yeah.
So along those lines, just really quickly, tonight, actually tomorrow morning, we're getting a puppy to surprise my husband for his birthday. So that's going to be my big distraction, which is going to be really fun. But also, I can see a puppy. I see a puppy jumping through.
Oh, that's so funny.
Our new puppy.
That's great.
Fun, but it's going to be a little challenging.
Oh, that's fun. We'll look forward to seeing the pictures. Linda, I
I'm
see
sure
you've
you've seen
unmuted
my
yourself.
black cat.
Yes.
I saw.
Yeah. No, I was going to say my black cat kind of zoom bombed or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always in my face when I'm working. So the trials and tribulations of working from home.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the sweet ones, cat typing, etc. So, yeah, I totally get it. So, David, we've talked so much about app use, development, software leadership, and now let's talk about how you personally got into this career. How did you get into the career?
A number of things happened along the way. And one of the things is I didn't do very well my first year of college. I actually failed about a third of my classes just because I was, a young kid, just fresh out away from mom and dad and having too much fun at college to study. And so I didn't study enough. And then I ended up realizing that at the time I was actually a biology major. I was not a computer science major. Computer science was my third major when I made my choices. And that I actually had to step back and take a look at the classes I was taking. Do I like what I'm doing? And after my freshman year of college and questioning, do I really want to keep studying biology, I had gone to Navy boot camp and learned some construction in the Navy. And at the time in knowing that I was questioning the biology thing, I was looking at what about becoming an officer in the Navy in one of these construction units? They study civil engineering, how to build bridges and dams and roads kinds of things. And so I started studying that. I went back to a junior college. I had been at a 4-year school my freshman year. And so I started studying the civil engineering, and part of their requirements was to take some computer programming classes. And I just had way too much fun computer programming. And so I switched and became a computer programmer. And so I found what I had fun doing for a living, and then I have been doing that ever since. So
That's really interesting. All right. So did you have any interests very early in life that kind of clued you into this natural ability that you discovered in college?
well, I've always been a curious type person. I've always been a science oriented kind of thing, and very much into discovery of stuff. And so I actually had access to computers very early on. And so 5th grade, around 10 years old, I had a computer, and that's when I actually first learned to do computer programming. Kind of had stepped away from it later on, and before I had rediscovered it in college, kind of thing. But I've always been that technically oriented kind of person. So it fits into, the things that I had been brought up with. My parents encouraged curiosity and exploration. And so it really fit into that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I remember you mentioning earlier that you even wrote your own programs for generating Dungeons and Dragons characters.
Yes, back when I was 10 years old, playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. Normally, when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you use the dice. You roll the dice to go and start building your characters when you create a character in Dungeons and Dragons initially. I wrote computer programs to take the place of that dice rolling kind of thing, and so
That's
you will still find Dungeons and Dragons dice rolling apps today out there in the stores. So
wow, wow. Well, at this point, I have another poll about your interests for the people who are on the call to talk about, to think about what your interests might be that can lead you into a career. For instance, like David, do you like taking things apart to learn how it works? Do you like playing games in which you are a character in the game? Or playing games in which you work as a team member to solve a problem? I can think of one person that we support who is exactly that. We've got, oh, look at that. A couple of people they enjoy figuring out better ways to do things. And a couple of people like creating art, such as drawing, graphics, or model making. All of these things can lead to app development or other highly professional, highly skilled jobs. Something to think about.
I have a question.
Yes, Courtney.
What is your favorite part of your job?
Ooh, good question, Courtney.
favorite part of my job is solving problems. When I'm able to come up with a solution that somebody else has brought a problem to my attention, when I can actually find a solution that solves that problem, it creates a really good feeling in me. And so that's my favorite part of the job.
Nice, nice. And that was a perfect question to ask right now. And here are the results of our poll. We've got a nice, well-rounded group here. That is for sure. Okay, so here I'm gonna do that and close that up.
I have a question.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
Yes, Tiffany, what is your question?
What do you like about your job?
One of the things I like about my job is that I get to work with a bunch of other smart people. I really believe when I'm hiring people that I want to hire people who are smarter than I am. And being able to work with those kind of people is very rewarding because I get to learn so much from them.
What kind of job do you want?
I actually want to keep doing what I'm doing. I very much like being a computer programmer, and keep doing that is what I expect to do for the rest of my life is in a career. Once I get finished, maybe another 10 or 20 years is when I'll actually retire. But I used to teach computer programming at the junior college, and I think I would like to go back and do more teaching of computer programming as I enter retirement age kind of thing.
It's Tiffany, that was one of the questions that I had written down to ask him, so good job. That was really, really nicely worded. And David, to lead a team, you have skills that you had already developed, and there were some things that you developed early on. But what are some of the skills that you continue to develop to be able to lead a team?
One of the big things that you really need to do as a leader is to listen to the people who you're working with. Again, the communication is very important, but as a leader, listening is just as important as telling people what to do, kind of thing. When you listen to the people on your team and when you're trying to solve problems, that means the leader is being open to ideas for different approaches. There's always more than one way to solve a problem, And just because the leader has an idea of how to do it doesn't mean it's the best idea. And so asking for ideas. I think in Star Trek Next Generation, Captain Jean-Luc Picard does a really good job of illustrating that, showing that kind of behavior when he turns to his bridge crew and asks for options when they're presented with a problem. That's a really good example. I think
Tiffany has another question. Yes, my dear. What would you like to ask?
When did you start your job?
When did I start as a computer programmer?
Yes.
I started after I had graduated college in 1995. So I've been programming for, 20 something years now. But I also started computer programming when I was 10 years old, learning on my own. So
What did you do before?
before I was a computer programmer, I was a student. I was going to college and high school kind of thing.
Right. And Joseph has been raising his hand. Joseph, would you like to ask a
David,
question?
which junior college did you teach at?
I used to teach at Santa Rosa Junior College.
That's such a cool campus. What a beautiful campus.
It is
I
nice,
have a
yes.
question.
Yes, Tiffany.
What college did you go?
I attended several colleges. My freshman year, I went to UC Santa Cruz. And again, I didn't do very good when I was there. And so I came home and I went to Sierra College, which is a junior college north of Sacramento. And then I finally got my bachelor's degree, my 4-year degree from Chico State.
So you've had an up and down kind of an experience to get into this job. Did anybody help you, David?
You talk about up and down. It took me 7 years to get a 4-year degree, so and there's a few things that hung me up, kind of thing. Helping me out, absolutely the first thing I have to say is my parents. They encouraged the curiosity. They encouraged the exploration. Professionally on the job, I've had a number of people who acted as mentors. And really, those guys at the early parts of my career really helped open my eyes to new ideas, new things to look at. I think anybody, when they first get into a new field, a new area of study, can be overwhelmed by just how big it actually is, kind of thing. And so having people guide you to look at different things, to look at some things a little differently, becomes very, very useful and very helpful.
So when you're hiring somebody, what do you look for?
I look for how somebody is going to fit in on the team. Computer programmers, before they get an interview, generally have demonstrated that they have the technical skills to be able to do the job. And so when somebody gets to the interview, I'm going to be looking for personality fits. Will this person be able to work well with the people who are on the team already? So those the prime things that I interview for. I do not ask technical questions in my interviews. I ask questions that turn into conversations like we're having now, and to get to know the person better.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. Tiffany, did you have another question? Yes.
Yes. What do you like about computers?
What do I like about them? Well, it's not so much the computers themselves that I'm liking, but it is the things that I do with them. It is, again, that problem solving, that ability to be presented with a problem, come up with a solution, and the inside good feeling that creates. And that's what's keeping me computer programming. So
that sounds really, really good. Now, you had mentioned before, you've mentioned throughout this conversation, the concepts of problem solving, focus, and learning. those are all terrific traits. Do any of them ever go to such an extreme where you want to counsel somebody that you work for, like, maybe don't focus quite so much. That's a little over-focused. Or, maybe they're not completing something because they're so focused on learning how to solve a problem, something like that.
This gets back into some of the teamwork kinds of things. We pay attention to what the other people are doing on the team. And so when my team member is doing the problem solving and is so focused, just like I mentioned, my mentors in when I was early in my career, getting me to look at things differently. When an individual is focused, having somebody else go, wait a second, you need to look at this also. You need to look at these other things, and opening the other person's eyes to new things can be very, very integral to very important to actually solving some problems.
Your suggestion there, the way you address it sounds like something that we do when on the job, right? We redirect somebody. If they're focused too much on one thing, and we find that, they might also enjoy focusing on this other thing. So redirection, it's a big part of the job to make sure that people can stay well-rounded.
Right. And again, in a leadership thing, that's, about motivating your people. Are they staying interested in what they're doing? And if they're not staying interested, they're not going to do as good a job as if they're interested. So putting somebody on a problem-solving task for something that they're interested in is very important, because they're going to do so much of a better job at it, kind of thing. This again comes back to talking to the team. As a leader, it's a good thing to ask for volunteers, because somebody might want to work on a particular problem, and if you hadn't asked, they wouldn't have raised their hand, kind of thing. And so that becomes an important thing. Just assigning stuff to people sometimes ends up not working out as well as asking for volunteers.
Yeah. So go ahead and describe a tough day on the job. I should have asked this right after Tiffany's question about your favorite part. It was a great question.
The toughest thing about my job is meetings. Generally, we have to have meetings. We have to have some way to get the team together to talk about what's going on. How you run those meetings is hugely important. Short, on topic, straightforward meetings that are over and done with quickly, that don't involve people getting bored during the meetings, is very important. Boring meetings are where it's information just being handed to your manager. This is a perfect example. My manager does something that I don't like, and that is a weekly status meeting. He is the person receiving information, and all the various computer programmers on the team. We've got around 50 in total now that report to our manager. And when each person gives their individual status over the length of an hour to an hour and a half, that is the most boring thing to sit through. Those are the kinds of meetings where we're wasting time, and those are the things that I don't like. If a meeting can be replaced by an email, it should be.
Mm-hmm. Now, as an example of a short meeting format, you had described to me the Scrum meeting format. Can you describe that for us?
The Scrum meeting format, the idea again is your team is going to inform everybody. Each person is going to only deliver 3 pieces of information. They're going to tell the team the thing that they've recently done. They're then going to tell people what they're going to do next, and then they're going to say they're going to tell people about any problems they run into, their blockers. So by going boom, boom, boom down those 3 little things, I have meetings with 15 people in them that take 5 minutes to get done with. And so those are very information packed, lots and lots of information in there, and we get through it very quickly, and everybody's happy because it only took 5 minutes.
And then everybody knows who they have to connect with after the meeting to
That's
complete
right.
the conversation, which sounds very fruitful. So, how do you see the job that you're doing changing over the next 10 years, long term?
I mean, things change. Things change every 3 weeks for me. You
Okay,
know,
so it's
and
hard to
that's one
say.
of the things about computer programming is things change very, very, very quickly, and that means we have to learn stuff quickly as well.
Right.
Um, Over the next 10 years, programming is going to be both the same and slightly different as we go forward. Over the next 10 years, we're going to see computers change. We're going to see phones change. The phones we have now don't look like the phones we had 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we just had the beginning of the smartphones coming out kind of stuff. Before that, we had the flip phones. Who knows what we're going to be working with in 10 years from now? Somewhere along the line, we can expect that, people are going to want to have those wearable computers that, Google came out with Google Glass a couple of years ago. It's a great idea. The look of it just stood out, and so it turned people off. I expect those kinds of things to evolve into things that don't stand out the way something like Google Glass did. If I had a computer that I could set in front of my face like this, and it looked like a normal pair of glasses, not with big bulky things hanging off of it kind of stuff, that could put a little display up in front of my eyes, I expect to see more and more of that kind of thing becoming popular in the next 10 years, becoming available because the hardware is getting smaller again, and we can pack more stuff into smaller spaces. The hardware is going to change. The software is going to evolve as we go, change as we go to match those hardware changes. In terms of the processes of software development, that's going to be one of those things that really doesn't change so much, kind of thing. There already are different methodologies, different ways that we do software development. Scrum is one of those methods that we use. There are other methods as well, and that is about how we do the work. And that's not going to change as much as the technical, stuff under the covers, under the hoods. Um, those little details is what's going to change the most over time.
Well, thank you. I've gotten to the end of my questions, and I'm very, very grateful for all of the time that you've been able to spend with all of us. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to our participants. We have 3 minutes left. Does anybody have any remaining questions that you would like to ask? We have 3 minutes.
I do.
Okay. Hi, Courtney.
What's the difference between a program developer and a graphic designer?
So, thank you, Courtney. The difference between a computer programmer and a graphics designer are the tools that they're using to create things. They're both creative positions, whereas a computer programmer is a person writing instructions for the computer. We write code. Graphics designer is more of an artist. They are using the computer to create images and buttons for things that you will see on screen. The graphics designer is that person who is going to make the decisions about how a person is going to interact with a computer program. They're going to decide where the input fields would have to be. If you had to type your name in for something, they're going to be the ones who decide where buttons are going to appear on the screen. So they're doing things that they're doing the design for how things look. The computer programmer is going to do the design for how things work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Nice.
David, I wanted to mention it. Thank you very much for your presentation. We all very much enjoyed it. And then I also wanted to comment, it's nice on a personal level that there's some connection. You went to UC Santa Cruz. I used to hang out in Santa Cruz a lot. And then my brother, who's 2 years older than me, also graduated from Chico State.
Cool.
Yeah.
Small world.
Small world. I love small world stories. Thank you very much, David.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.